Ninan, up to you now.
Good evening. Thank you, Monolitha. And first of all, thank you, IIA, for this seminar. In fact, I've attended seminars, been the panel for companies, but generally it is IT and IT related companies. But for the first time, talking to architects as a community, generally, though I have a lot of friends who are architects, it's for the first time that I'm looking at architects as a community and then looking at their issues. Now, before we get into the details or the details of the discussion, I would like to share some incidents, some thoughts that I had. First is about most of you, many of you here would have organized an event in any of the convention centers in the town or the city. So compare it with having it organized, say, 10 years, 15 years ago, and compare it with being organized right now. I can confidently tell you that there is a sea of difference, especially in one aspect when you have a DJ or an orchestra or a Ganamela being done. And you go to any convention center and have the program done. I can confidently tell you, you will have to negotiate, and that to a lengthy, not so comfortable negotiation with the music societies, whether it be PPS or the IPRS or any of those PPL or any of those societies. You will have to negotiate for a royalty for the music, whether we like it or not. Second one is an incident which happened to one of my clients. A client has been having multi-city offices. This happened around 6-7 years ago, where one day around 20-25 people, mostly not from Kerala, outside from Delhi, barged into the office, created a lot of commotion and chaos at the front office, and then luckily I was there also. They were trying to barge into the room, saying that they need to do some search and for pirated software. So I said, see, we can do that, let you do that, provided you have the authority to do it. Now, a gentleman came forward and said, see, I am so-and-so. I'm the commissioner appointed by Delhi High Court. I have the authority. I have an attend penal order from the Delhi High Court to do a search and for the pirated software. And if there is infringing software, I also have an authority to seize, confiscate those devices and do the needful. So the search went on for the day. This is more like a staged program. Towards the evening, there again became a major issue because obviously a couple of skeletons were there and discussions happened in the evening. It became a bit dirty. And to cut the story short, 2 days later, we all had to go to Delhi, sit across the negotiation table, had a very uncomfortable negotiation where the balance of power was largely with the software company than with my client, because a lot of incriminating evidences were there. So had to negotiate in a uncomfortable situation and then concede to certain conditions and then regularize the licenses. The third thing is an incident where one of my clients here, running a showroom here in Cochin, received a notice from a music company for royalty payment for violation, infringement of copyright, for playing their music in the showroom. And the fourth incident is about a company. This is IT hardware, not IT. It's a hardware company, a small company here in Cochin, where there was an incident where, all of a sudden they got a call. They got a call from one software compliance person who introduced himself as a software compliance head for a particular company, large software company, and said, see, we have got evidence to prove that your office have been using our software illegally and you got to regularize this. And this man said, we don't have that. They said, we have evidence. So they sent a detailed letter, I would say, saying that, this particular Mac machine having the Mac ID XYZ accessed using the IP address, which belongs to this particular company and has this software. and has been using this from this time to this time. So incidentally, what actually had happened is that there was one consultant employee, not even an employee, a consultant who had come in between, used his laptop to work on a project, used their official Wi-Fi, as Madhavan said, you got into their network, used their Wi-Fi and connected to the net. And unfortunately, his machine had this pirated design testing software, which got connected with their parent company and sent sufficient signals to say that the software had been being used at this particular client's location. It went into a very detailed argument, letters, threatening, cajoling, coaxing, every tactics that could have done, and finally had to settle it out in a pre-suit mediation because they didn't have much of evidence. So finally, it had to be settled out in a pre-suit mediation before at Delhi with the support of some well-wishers, because the kind of money that they asked for was much larger than the annual turnover of the company. So these are 4 incidents which I wanted to bring to your notice before we get into the details. Now, when this topic idea of this webinar was brought to me, I thought of talking to architects, before getting into the webinar. So I actually spoke to many architects in the last 1 week, starting from students, because students, people said students are getting spoiled by the use of software, and they started using this, and they have they create this problem, they come with this app. So I spoke to a couple of students. They said they have this version of this, as architect Lalichan said, they have this student versions which they are not very comfortable with. Maybe, I don't know whether it's because of the watermark or anything, but they prefer to use the actual software that you guys use. Whether it is cracked or not, they don't care, but they prefer to use the actual software than the pirated one. But one thing that I noticed is, for sure, all these students, when they look upon their career, they have software as part of their career path. They do not foresee a life without software at all. So that has become their part of their life. So there is no life without that. The second set of people that I spoke to was the kind of startup architect firms. Like, the head of the firm himself is around 30, less than 35 kind of people. So very vibrant set of people. I think IIA should be looking at them, talking to those people to get a lot of advice, a lot of inputs. I spoke to people who even have systems in place, excellent systems to manage LAN, all the network, whether there is a PC coming from outside, whether it's a bring your own device kind of a concept, everything, they have a system in place. They even have mechanisms to, to check whether there are online offers available for the subscription license. And most of these guys do not have perpetual license, because by the time they started office, this concept of perpetual license have gone. They mostly have the subscription license, except for the alternates that they use. Like the PC was talking about the alternates. They actually have started using the office alternate for the typical word that we use. They have many alternates for that. I don't think even the lawyers, any of the professionals, other professionals, have that kind of an idea. So the new age kind of architects, I think, are very well versed with, most of them are very well versed with this kind of things. And then the next set that I spoke to was those kind of people who actually have seen the transformation, who started their career with drawing, physical drawing, and then they saw the change happening on the software, design software, and then they are well versed with the software application right now. So they've seen the change happening. So this is slightly larger offices. They are also generally better off because they know that there are situations like this. They have not adopted to the level at which these new age companies have, firms have done, but they also have systems in place. One thing I have noticed is that the difference between these two sets is that the new age or the startup kind of firms, have already factored in in their financial budgeting. When they started the company, they have factored in a cost for software in the budget. But whereas in the case of a mid-sized firm, it is not very easy to suddenly get into a larger amount on the cost factoring, because their overheads are definitely larger than the smaller firms. So the mid-sized firm find it slightly difficult to adjust, but they already have some paper licenses, perpetual licenses in place, so they can manage the cost of infrastructure in a better way. So this is another set of people. The fourth set of people that I interacted with is the large firms. There are two types of large firms. One is these large firms who have suddenly grown into larger size firms from a small company in a short span of time. I think most of those firms have excellent systems in place, including in-house legal counsels. You know, their contracts with customers or vendors or outsource partners are, employees are all well drafted. They have systems in place with lawyers in-house. Now, there are other set of large firms, who has a pedigree, who has a history, but conventionally grown into large firms. I think change is a bit of a slow process in those large firms when it compared to the mid-sized firms or the startup firms. Now, there exactly is the catch. Like, when you look at the software firms who are eyeing on the users, their own users, to identify the non-licensed to software use. This is, if you look at software companies, it is a major, as architect Lalichan mentioned in the beginning, a larger part of business for them comes from, making the non-compliant use compliant. So there is a big business in that area. There's a big business for software companies, and there's a big business for companies associated with the software companies, helping them in doing it, getting it done. I'm talking about the large law firms. I'm talking about the big fours. I hope you understood when I say big fours. The big fours associated with all these large software companies who offer the consultancy services for auditing and all. I'm talking about the private detectives who are involved. I'm talking about the technical consultants who are involved. There's a huge chunk of people who are involved in this process. There's a lot of money involved in this process. I've seen that happen. Now, when you talk about that kind of money involved, there is a return investment for the money that these investors receive. So they look at people who can afford to pay, point number one. And because if they chase a person who doesn't have the capacity to pay, they will leave it like that. So they will look at people who can afford to pay, and they look at a critical mass. So obviously, I'm not saying that they will not go after smaller companies, but obviously, when it comes to software companies, looking at non-compliances, all size of companies, firms should be careful, but especially the larger firms should be more careful, because there could be dust beneath the carpet. There could be, because of the history, the pedigree, the time that they have been in business, there could be dust beneath the carpet. And the question is how much we are aware of the dust under the carpet. And now that brings to one important aspect of what is it the right? Do they actually have a right? The software company, what right do they have when it comes to the intellectual property? Or how do they enforce this right? How can they enforce this right? That's the second question. And what do we do? This is the third question. Now, the first point, do they actually have a right when it comes to intellectual properties? As we all know, as all the panelists mentioned, different laws, and particularly in this context, it is a copyright law. Though we have the patents, the design to an extent, but patents and design rights, trademarks, everything is there. In this software context, it is a copyright law which is more appropriate. So as a copyright owner of the software, they have a right over their work of the authorship. Now, when somebody else is trying to have that right enjoyed without his permission, without the permission of the actual owner, or beyond the permission that has been granted by the actual owner, then that is an infringement. That is granted by law to these owners of intellectual property. Now, the 4 stories that I mentioned earlier, there is no difference in what has happened. There is no new law enactment which has happened in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years. What has happened is the law remains the same, but the actual IP owners have started enforcing their rights more vehemently. That's the difference. Okay. Now, the point is, how can they enforce their rights? Can they just walk into an office and do a search? Do they have the right to do that? Can they just barge in and then threaten people and say use abusive language? Can they actually put you in a corner and then put a lot of pressure and start contacting the clients and then put a very bad figure of yours in public? Are they legally allowed to do that? Now, when you have a legal right, your remedy or the enforcement is also through a legal due process of law, not by your hands, because we have a rule of law here. So obvious answer, I don't have to explain. Whatever right they have or you have as an intellectual property owner is through a legal process of law. What are the legal process of law then? One is a civil process of law, where you have a civil right which can be enforced. That is what I was talking about when the Delhi court has given an anti-penal order to a company to have a premises inspected. That's a civil right being enforced. Okay, but interestingly, the infringement right is a criminal offense also, and there the IP right owner can actually approach the police to have his rights enforced for a criminal offense. That option is also there. But most of the companies, let me tell you, most of the companies which I have seen are happy or prefer the civil route rather than the criminal route for obvious reasons. The reason is that one, they can claim damages only in a civil offense. Second, they are dealing with their clients. They don't want to stop the whole conversation at that one point. They actually want to continue. So for obvious reasons, they prefer to have the civil right, but they still have the other route also open to them. That's the point that I want to tell you. Now, that comes to us an important point. Like what Madhavan said, the right of an audit that the EULA or the end user license which gives them. Now that's a contractual right. A contractual, when you accepted a contract, a terms of use for a particular software, between you and him, we're accepting a fact that, okay, fine, I allow you to come into my office, either by yourself or through a consultant of yours, to check my premises and my devices to see that I am compliant with the licenses that you granted. Now, the question is, what if you do not allow them to do it? Is it a breach of law or is it a breach of contract? So that I'm not asking you not to allow or to allow. What I'm telling you is, if you do not allow somebody to come in, it is not a breach of law. It is actually a breach of contract which you have entered into with it. I hope I'm clear on that. Now, the companies, if you look at all these companies, whether we like it or not, whether we have planned it or not, whether we have budgeted an amount in our financial budget for the software part of it, assets of it, I can tell you, these companies have already budgeted some significant amount for software compliances or enforcement of their licenses. So when they have, or these companies, the IP owners have enforced or earmarked some significant amount for software enforcement, license enforcement, that actually gives us a message about counter reacting to their strategy by another strategy. And that strategy, when I say strategy, it is just common sense. It is a commonsensical approach to see how much dust do we have? Do we have dust beneath the carpet? How much dust do we have? How can we remove that dust? How much can we remove? Is it possible to remove? How long will it take to remove? How do we prevent dust from coming in? Is mud better than the dust? These are the points that we need to do. That's a commonsensical approach. As Madhavan said, it's a commonsensical approach for each and every one of you to see that you keep your house in order. Okay, so this is only one part. I also want to tell you that when it comes to compliances or when it comes to legal systems, very importantly, you should also keep in mind that when you are outsourcing work, the contract that you enter with your outsourced partner should ensure that the IP of the output belongs to you and that they keep things confidential. Not only about the rate that you fix with them. Suppose you are giving the work, rendering work for one outsourced client, or your TD drawing or the extensive drawings to an outsourced agent. And with the client being a large client, you've agreed that the IP belongs to the client. And with this subcontracted person, you have agreed on a rate contract with him, where you have not enforced the fact that the IP will belong to you. Then actually you're violating the contract that you have entered with your end client, where you have agreed that the IP belongs to him. Okay, so that's one aspect. Then next one is about your employees. So what kind of documentation you have with your employees? Your technical systems, your IT infrastructure is important. At the same time, the paperwork that you have with your employees is also important if you want to have something enforced at a difficult situation. With that, let me conclude the initial conversation, then probably I'll hand it over to Monolitha.
Thanks a lot, Ninan. Okay, so the chat window is open for questions as well as the Q&A panel. And we already have a set of questions here, which I will start off with our panelists. And we will keep on taking as many questions we can till about 5:45, 5:50. And after that, we will have a quick 10-minute thing to put together a format for going forward. That is the plan. I didn't interrupt the speakers because they had such excellent advice for us. Most of the things we haven't probably considered before. So we have overshot our time a bit. I hope we can wrap it up, but there are very interesting questions which I need the panelists to look at. I've just kind of sorted them out for various people. One thing I would actually start off with Lalichan, because Ninan had talked about the IP rights, and the intellectual property rights is actually cleared. I mean, it's clearly mentioned in our Council of Architecture process, I think, and in our contract document and all. So Lalichan, could you just clarify it for, especially if there are young architects listening, maybe they should just understand about the intellectual property rights of our drawings.
Definitely, we have the right on our drawings, intellectual property rights. But unfortunately, it is so far. There were quite a few cases earlier, but it was some architects tried to establish it, but they couldn't establish in the court of law. I don't know why. I have gone in detail into that, but probably Ninan could tell us why the architects, because maybe it is not very, it is very fluid that anybody can change a little bit and say this is not that, this is not equal to that, something like that. But my question, I have a question to Ninan. Can we do the same thing for softwares also? If that is being a pirated copy, how can the original owner claim that it is his? How far he can prove?
These are two different things that we're talking about. See,
okay.
People do that for the software. So the software that you have, probably Madhavan can explain that better. You only get the executables on this. Okay, but if you're in touch with the source code is available, you change the source code. The way it is not, it's not. There is a test, which is established by the courts to see whether it's to find out whether it's an source code itself. But here we are talking about the executable part of the software. What you have from the customer, from the licensor, is an executable. Okay, so you crack the executable and you use it. We are not changing anything on the software. It is something which you've got, and you've cracked the license key, and whoever is using it is using it. But there, the original, the mother drawing itself is beyond recognition. So I am not aware about I've not gone into the specifics of any architecture cases where IP rights have not been established. But definitely, as you rightly said, the IP rights belong to the architect. Now, if it has not been established, that may be because of various reasons, depending on the facts of that particular case. But if it is changed beyond a level where it's not recognizable, then even the test of law will fail to see whether it is actually copied from the original stuff. Here it is not copying, it is not a modification. We are talking about use of that drawing itself. Say for example, I can tell you, okay, one happened, something happened around here itself, where an architect's drawing was used by a builder in a hoarding. That was removed by the architect sending a legal notice to the builder. Used as is. That's the case they're talking about piracy in this case. Then it was used as is. But in other cases, it's being changed.
No, but here, from our experience, some of the clients think that the intellectual property right of a design prepared, they being paid to the architects, that is with the owner, with the promoter.
Correct.
They think that. Can you make it clear whether it remains with the architect or with the client? The intellectual property right.
It remains with the architect. Okay. But some clients, with the contract, they actually assign the rights over to them. Say, for example, it's a large client. Okay, large client. They, in the contract that they engage with the customer, in the architect, they have terms where the rights of the work that you have created is assigned by yourself to the client. Okay, so that's an assignment of right to the client. Now, I just
want to clarify one point in this, that this is then a deliberate transaction which is happening as a part of one contract, right?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Correct. That is exactly why I said, when you outsource work to a third party, you should be careful that IP remains with that third party whom you have outsourced. So you should be careful enough to have that assigned to you. When you assign work, when you have subcontracted work, you should have it assigned to you, so that you can be the owner of it.
There's a little bit of a background sound. Where is that coming from? Okay, Madhavan, there's a question from Raj Kumar Prajapati. Will you please elaborate on the seat license that you talked about? Will you please elaborate on the seat license that you talked about?
Yeah. See, the certain software, they issue license to on a particular machine, on a laptop or on a desktop. That is a seat license. In the morning, 9 to 12 o'clock, one person can use it. Afternoon, another person come and sit there and continue the work. One installed license on a machine. So it's not given in the name of a person. Okay. So you have 10 machines, 10 servers, 10 laptops in an office. You buy 10 seat license. Only 10 persons can concurrently use it. Concurrently. But sequentially, another person can come and use it. Maybe in the evening shift, another set of draftsmen can do the 2D drawing. And that's what I meant by that seat license. So you need to read and find out what license each of these vendors provide.
Okay, PC, there is a question, quite a few questions actually. One is about which is your preferred software after going to all the softwares, especially for CAD, I think the question is. Second, have you looked at Escape and Ecotech? And third is about reliable cloud storage, if you have any recommendation. Okay, so could you answer those?
Okay, that's it. Okay, no, I know there would be many more software options available. I've not tested all of them because that's not my primary job. I have to do my architecture as well. So I'm speaking from my experience. So yeah, I've tested. I've used in CAD. I've used BricsCAD. I've tested SWCAD, AutoCAD, AutoCAD LT. And previous versions of CADian and XLECAD. Presently, I'm quite comfortable using, I don't have a licensed version yet. I've been doing the trial versions of BricsCAD and SWCAD, and they're both equally, they're quite good. And BricsCAD has a bit more advanced interface. I prefer that to is a WCAT, but that doesn't, I'm not saying that the WCAT doesn't do its job. Escape, I've not tried. I'd like to try it and see how good it is. But that is also something which we had to pay for. I think I just checked it up. It costs about, yearly, it will cost about 50,000 rupees for rendering. And what was the third question? About the cloud storage.
Cloud storage.
Yeah. There are many ways of doing it. One is, of course, the Dropbox option with, I think you get it for 6 TB storage is available for $12 a month per person, as in per user. So if you can share the same user ID, probably that's a good option. But that does not give you individual control. And it's a very reliable engine, the Dropbox, of course. And if you have a Microsoft license, you're eligible to use Microsoft 360, Office 365 license also comes with its own, what is it called? The OneDrive.
OneDrive, yeah.
Yeah, that comes with a 1 TB, if I'm not mistaken. So that's also a good option that you can, it will keep all your files updated wherever you are.
But does OneDrive really work at an office level? I have been using it personally to shift between locations, but does it work at an office level?
It works all right. It's just that you need to have the larger version for it to be shared. As in, you can share files and folders on OneDrive, which other Office users can access. So that way,
I can add on to this because OneDrive is something I'm using extensively because a lot of my work is also collaborative with a lot of other offices which are not around here, and also with people even in abroad. And we continuously share large files across this OneDrive and also Microsoft Teams folder. These are the two things that I have been using extensively, which works very well.
Yeah, but they are all proprietary software which you have to pay for.
Yeah.
And I just saw another question about apps on mobile to view CAD drawings and SketchUp. I think they all, once you have a license, you can download and use. It comes free. If you have a SketchUp license, you can use a SketchUp viewer and download it and use. That's what I understand. And some of the CAD software, viewing software, are free. I have not really tested them. So I think you can use, I think ZWCAD and the PixCAD would have their option, their mobile viewing software. So apps which you can use, I guess.
Okay. There is a very interesting question by Abid Rahim. And I think that is a question that most architects kind of have a little bit of a fear in them. So I would like to address that before. There are many other questions. I would just like to address this probably by Ninan first, and then maybe the other panelists also can weigh in with their knowledge. In the event that a software company's compliance team approaches a practice, either physically, in person, or otherwise, irrespective of whether the practice uses illegal software or not, how should the practice deal with the situation? Ninan, would you take it up? And then I would like all the panelists to kind of comment on this.
Yeah, I think I've touched upon this topic in the initial part. The right for a software.
I think they really want to know step one, step two, like how do you go about it? How do you deal with this?
See, unfortunately, we cannot have a checklist for everything because the situation could be different at different levels. But the concept is the same. The concept is, well, the first question is, do they have the right to get it? And my answer is no, except under the due process of law. And when I spoke to a couple of architects, they were very happy the way, especially IIA, especially architect Lalichan, they specifically mentioned his name, that the comfort that IIA gave them in clearing their wrong notion that they should be allowing any TDS to come in and check their offices, and the comfort given by Lalichan and IIA, the power to clarify that they are, unless there is a legal due process, they not allow someone. Then the question is only about the contractual right of some people. That I answered, right? That is a contractual right that you have given to them. So if you do not allow them, it becomes a breach of contract. That's all, not a breach of law.
Okay, Lalichan, maybe you can also, please add on to that. Add on to this. Lalichan, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes. See, when you say the breach of contract, suppose I take a lakh of rupees from you as loan, Ninan, and we have entered into a, you said we have to enter into a contract. After 100 days, if you don't pay me back, I will come and shoot you. So because of the urgency of the money, I have agreed and signed and give it to you. But does that stand in a court of law?
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
So if the analogy that you have used have gone a bit beyond, because that is that the act that they have proposed is itself is an illegal act. But audit is not an illegal act. It is a rightful act of an IP owner to see whether his license is being used right in the right way or not. So so it is a
no. Who gave that power to them? Who gave that? How did they get that power?
By the contract. When you gave the permission.
No, not by the contract. See, when you say that somebody is given a power to go to an office and audit, is it the government by rule say that they can do? No. This is rule created by that company itself.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this way. There are licensing contracts in two different manners. So I represent a lot of product companies. So when a product company, keep away all these big names of that we have mentioned today, all the big names. But if you take a typical product company, and even the big names, if you are talking to a big customer, okay, the customer would say, I am not happy with your print version of license. I want to have a version which is editable and for my legal team to review, and then we will review the contract and we will see the terms and we will sign on a dotted lines only when I am happy with the terms. But the problem here for most of us when we purchase this kind of software is that there is not enough bandwidth for those kind of negotiations. So if you have accepted that, it is a mutual meeting of mind between the buyer and the seller, which is a right given by this buyer to the licensee to the licensor. But there are contracts where there is no audit right. I've drafted contracts where there is no audit right. This is not given by the law. It is a mutual understanding between the licensor and the licensee.
Okay, Lalichan, I would like you to also come in from the point of IIA, the advice that you've given to us also about how to deal with such a situation. If you can inform everybody in this forum about what an architect should do.
Yeah, IIA has always advised members not to allow anybody to come and audit by themselves. Otherwise, they have to come with a court order. If they are not coming with a court order, nobody has to permit this or the compliance team into their office. This is the advice given to all members.
Not only court, the police also has the right.
Okay, whichever way.
Without a warrant.
Yeah. But see, most of the times when these compliance teams call up these members and send mails, and if they find, sometimes, most of the times with the members, they are not using any illegal softwares at that point of time. We are taking into confidence whatever they tell us, but in some point of time, they have used a software, and these people then say we have softwares which can dig out traces of that you've used such software in that period of time. So we have taken a stand from IIA that we will not allow this. We will not allow digging up. If a member is not using any pirated software at that point of time, we as an association will not let this audit compliance team to barge in, or if they go to the court, we will support them in fighting out this case. That was a stand taken by IIA. To the legal point of view, probably it may not be that correct. That is what Ninan is smiling. I can understand that.
I have a couple of questions actually, which I think both Madhavan and Ninan can help us answer. It is basically talking about a couple of things. One is students coming into office as trainees, and they are very often bringing in the educational version of the software in their laptops and using that. Does that make us as firms liable in any format? Ninan, Madhavan, either of you.
See, the student license, I have not gone through the student license terms as such.
Okay.
But in every possible way, if I think about the student license, it will be like an evaluation license for only for learning purpose. So if that license is being used for a commercial purpose, I am presuming that there could be restrictions on the student license for using it for a commercial purpose.
Within a firm.
Within
I think it is very clearly
or by themselves.
But the training part is part of their educational process.
That's a different thing. If that is for an internship program, then
Yeah.
that's an entirely different thing.
but the moment we use any of those in office, it might be a problem. You cannot use it for any professional.
No.
You cannot use it as
No,
part
you
cannot
use it. I cannot use it. But a student doing internship in the office who's working on office work can use it. Can't they? Ninan, can you clarify?
Yeah, but you cannot use the product.
No. So the output that is created using a student version of the software,
Yeah.
that output is being used in a commercial drawing. There's a difference in these two.
So, okay.
For the student, from the student perspective, what she has done or he has done should be license compliant. But from a firm perspective, we are taking the output using a student version of the software and using it in our commercial drawings. I still have not reviewed the student license, so I'm not able to give you a full picture on it. Probably I can do that and let you.
The thing is, for a proper utilization of the internship program, it becomes imperative that they are engaged in productive work in an office. So it's like, if an internee in a law firm is doing some work on a case, you will be using that in the case, right? So I'm a little confused about this.
On the larger perspective, let me tell you that this is the least point that we need to be worried about, because in both cases it is being used. On the firm we have proper licenses. On the student, we also have a student version of license.
Okay.
So
not always.
Yeah.
The problem is that most of these students don't even use a student license. They come with
that's a different thing.
The question was about a student version of license,
that's
not about a pirated one.
So
the issue is that in my office, we have blocked
if it is a pirated version, this is not the answer.
Yeah.
Yet Monolitha's point was when the student uses a student
educational.
version.
Yeah.
Educational.
My point was that.
Yeah.
The pirated version is a completely different thing. I'm not talking about that. But there is also a question which has come. Now, these are all questions on piracy, I think. So, as such, I will actually answer this for all the panelists, but we are not really having a discussion on allowing how do you find the ways to use pirated software, because there are questions of individual freelancers when they're working in different Wi-Fi networks. How do they do this? How are they dealt with by companies? But what is more critical is for offices to understand their vulnerability when they have Wi-Fi's open for a lot of other people to use. And I think, Madhavan, you had touched on it a little bit. Can you please elaborate this point on about Wi-Fi's which are open for people to use within an office, and the dangers of that?
See, Wi-Fi is something which doesn't restrict the access within the office. You can get trapped if the passwords are leaked, because a person sitting outside the office, in some of the high-rise buildings, the Wi-Fi's are available in the up floor and the down floor. So they can use it, provided they know the password. So the controls which you need to enforce is maybe dual-factor authentication and stuff like that, which most of the offices may not have, unless otherwise they are into very high protected environment. So you share the Wi-Fi password to an intern, it goes out, and everybody in the next floor will be using it for downloading, installing, whatever, not just the piracy to the software which you use. It could even be, the legal implications be much more. So the point is, when interns come, you keep track of what the interns are doing so that there is a legitimate situation in front of you. They have come for their internship work. They have used their own machines. They are using a guest Wi-Fi, which is not used for your commercial purpose. The situation will be more in favor of the office rather than in favor of your, what you call as the other side.
Okay.
If you allow them into the network, do everything what they want, whether it is intern, partner, or whatever, you're making your system more risky.
Okay.
I think Ninan would see the legal point over there very much. It depends on which side he is.
PC, maybe you can share the decisions we have taken in the office regarding this.
No, one is of course not sharing Wi-Fi anymore. We don't have shared Wi-Fi, so that kind of keeps downloads and people tracking what there are in other systems through our network, and that is one. But on the other side, there is also the question of are these interns using their laptops and bringing drawings and probably plugging it into the USB and doing their works at night and plugging USB and saving it here. So all those traces are probably left behind. So is that also something to be concerned about? Is something which I wanted to ask both of you, Ninan and Madhavan. Yeah.
See, a drawing file definitely will have a format like most software engineers will be familiar with. So the header of a software file definitely captures the essence of which software it has used, which machine it has been used, which license it has been used, and so on. So it leaves a trail. Someone who knows about, and this header might have something which can be read only by the forensics, not even an open person who hacks through a little bit of programming. So one needs to be extremely careful when we exchange drawings. That's why I said about when you outsource to someone, make sure you're protected by clauses in terms of confidentiality, license compliances, and so on, so that your firm is protected. You put a wall from the partnership or
Madhavan, actually, Arun Vidyasagar is asking exactly the same question that I was going to actually ask, because what happens is when you have a student version which a trainee has been working on and they put it in the machine, the watermark can be removed if you have a licensed software. You can save it as a licensed software version. But does that, that is safe? Is that safe? Is that legal?
It's what you call as a border question in terms of, see, a student intern is in your office for a period of time as part of that course curriculum. That work is commercialized in terms, it says that the organization has taken money, sold their property. There are a lot of other things which will happen in terms of, like, when you copy this watermark stuff, that DWG file into, or if it's an AutoCAD, into a licensed software, definitely it's not that the old history is completely removed from the file header. There will definitely be the old version on which it is worked, whether it is student license or pirated version, etc., will remain there for sure.
No, it will remain there. All I'm asking is, Ninan, maybe you can bring a little more clarity whether that makes us violating any law. Because, say, for example, right now there is a whole work from home situation which we are going through. A lot of people are work from home, and we can't really force them to buy 50,000, 70,000, 2.5 lakh softwares, right? So how do we navigate this situation? With all good intentions, no intention to violate any law, how do we navigate these situations?
I understand. So the first question that you asked, like the student version which is being used, which has a watermark, and then the watermark is being removed when we actually keep the output in the licensed software version, and then remove the watermark and use it in the commercial output that the firm uses. The clear answer to that is no, because there is an output created by a particular license for a particular license given for a particular purpose, and that output is we are actually manipulating the output where the watermark is being removed and then used in the commercial output.
No, the AutoCAD itself allows us to save it. I mean, it's not something we are doing which is taking a lot of work.
I understand. I understand. So, but from my perspective, the answer is no. But
Okay.
I told you, I have not seen the student version license conditions. So
Okay.
if the student version license conditions, if it allows for that kind of a purpose, then it should be okay. But if you look at it from a commonsensical point of view, if the internee comes into an office, that internee should be working on a licensed software. I am still saying I have not reviewed a student license terms.
That will basically mean that none of us can take on internees because the output they give does not validate us buying out the software for them.
No, I can tell you there are softwares available for monthly user licenses for internees. There are softwares available, and the internee themselves could be ready to use that. Okay, but I must also tell you that these monthly subscription-based licenses is something which you should be. When I spoke to an architect firm, they have the monthly internal license is switched off. At the end of the month, their credit card is not auto-debited the next month. So most of the firms, architect firms, I think have good systems and practices in place. It is only about getting all these systems and then disseminate across
the board. Yeah. Okay. So I think the larger points are kind of covered. Shall we move into discussing what will be the way forward? And I would take it for 2 minutes from each of you panelists, starting with in the order of the presentations that were given. So starting with Lalichan, I have a couple of points which I would like to bring up to you. Yeah, right. So one is, of course, already you are doing phenomenal work in terms of giving architects the confidence to deal with a lot of these predatory practices that the firms have. And a large part of this conversation also has been based on a lot of interactions with you at a personal level, also as the IIA National Secretary. What we are looking at are how can we collectively as IIA come together to, number one, negotiate better pricing deals for us, because the pricing is a big part of why people end up using pirated software. Number two, is there any possibility for us to collectively create a mandate by which we can move away from an environment of threat and fear?
Yeah, basically, IIA will definitely, IIA together with COA now, together with COA will definitely try and negotiate with these companies to bring down the cost to affordable levels. Because when they come to India, I've seen most 30 to 40% of their sales are happening in India right now. And if they are looking really at the numbers, they definitely could bring down the cost because they are selling the product in US the same price they're selling it in India. So this is what we are trying to negotiate with them. We will continue to do that.
What I would like to ask you is that we should not only do with just the leading brands like AutoCAD, Autodesk, or SketchUp, but maybe we should create a environment where many competitive softwares are negotiated with, so that there are different versions of pricing which different levels of firms can access.
Definitely. Actually, we're in dialogue with many like ZWCAD. Most of the softwares we are in, and some of the softwares also come down. They are bringing package. They are already offered packages for architects by bringing down the prices. So that will continue. But at the same time, the dream that I have shared is not a dream right now. We have actually gone a little ahead in that, and we have identified the engine on which we are going to develop our CAD.
Very good.
And that is the solution. The final solution is going to be that. No, but see, but there are a lot of softwares which are affordable, available in the market. Definitely, people should look at using those things. And also, the trainings which is given in the colleges should not be on the costly softwares. If that is changed, students should be given options to choose from, and they should be educated that this is going to be the cost. If you do it in this in this software, this is going to be the cost. When you go out, you have to buy it. So otherwise, it is better that you use a cheaper software and train them, or even a software which is free.
Yeah. And how do we as IIA come together as a fraternity to deal with the threats and these threats and fear tactics?
Actually, I had dealt with more than 200 cases in last 2 years, more than 200 cases, and not one single case has gone to the court. It is all settled. These software companies have promised that IIA members will not be harassed. And they have not much control the companies yet. But whenever we approach them with these are the things, but we make sure that member is not using the software given to the software company. So they are also budging. Not even a single case is registered in last 2 years.
Okay, thank you so much. CC, what would you look at in terms of a pool of knowledge that we can bring together in terms of competitive and alternative softwares, and how do we create negotiating packages with different software groups?
For one, I've been thinking about Lalichan also has to. It's a thought basically of having licenses, the group licenses, like some companies offer 100 or 200 licenses, which are area specific or country specific. If we negotiate and fix a price with a minimum number, which can be shared through the members, that would be a very good option, and it can probably work out very economical for most of the firms, and also the young firms who require software initially, but until unless they want to go with their own choice of software. That is one. Secondly, of course, negotiating, as Lalichan said, about with each company. These are the standard softwares we use normally, and the point is that we cannot keep it limited because there are more and more software coming out every day. So you have to be open to that also, especially the young officers which come out and start working. They have probably better understanding of the available software than a lot of the older firms. So we have to keep that option also.
How do we tackle this annual subscription, which is especially like companies like Autodesk and all have very, very stiff annual subscription, and there is no way to have AutoCAD today without the subscription.
Yeah, now if you want to buy it, it is all subscription, and the moment it runs out, you're out. Even you don't have CAD.
You can't use the. Lalichan, do you have any way we can deal with subscriptions? Because that seems to be a big point that we need to tackle.
Even I have tried to do it in my office. I have requested them because of the COVID. Can you give me two months extension? They said no way.
So, I have a couple of questions actually asking about this, because due to the COVID situation, many people can't even step out, and also there are quite a few questions which have come which are asking, can we negotiate some extra time for subscription? So is there something that IIA can talk?
We are actually negotiating with. We are actually talking to them, and they said, see, all this the lead companies don't have any authority in the country to do this. They said it has come from the parent company. So maybe smaller companies can offer, but not these. If you're subscribing from the lead companies, they won't give you any exemption. They don't have the powers to do it.
The fact is that we are probably the biggest market, and they are charging us the same rate as probably anywhere else in the first world countries. I mean, there's something wrong in the entire way the thing is working, right? The entire economics is working. So
And if
Something
my
we have to-
information, if we see if my information is right, during COVID days, the largest design company that we are talking about has increased their prices by 10,000 rupees.
Wow. Okay. But I also want to tell you that the largest company has also laid off almost 30% of their staff. I know because 3 of my friends have lost jobs there.
That's right.
So it's a very difficult. Madhavan, I would like us to look at the protocols and processes manual. Do you suggest we should create a manual from IIA which can be shared with all the firms? And if we do, how do we go about that?
It's a wonderful idea. Definitely Madhavan can help us in this. We'll be coming to you on this. Definitely that's a wonderful idea. We'll do that.
Madhavan, can we? Hello, Madhavan. Did we lose him?
I think.
I can't. Madhavan, can you hear us? Okay, we'll move on to Ninan and hopefully Madhavan can join. But this protocols and processes manual is something which I think would help a lot of firms in coming together to the whole and being software compliant. Ninan, similarly, an SOP for management of licenses and legal processes within an architectural firm. Okay, Madhavan, you're back. Can you?
There's a small interruption in between in the net.
No problem. Can you take up that protocols and processes manual for firms? How do we go about it? It's something which seems quite critical.
It's not a rocket science. Every office can take from a standard set of process and adopt it in terms of how to onboard employees, how to register software, how to keep an inventory, how to do an audit. This could be done by an external person. I would suggest it strongly that it be done by an internal person so that you have complete control. When you outsource, like generally after some time it becomes a ritual. So internally checking it, keeping sure what you have, making sure what your purse contains is very, very important. So definitely it's something which I would suggest, irrespective of all these negotiations of price, etc. Today it may be one company, tomorrow it may be the office software, it may be something else. So the license compliance issues will be there, and every software is moving to a subscription model, not just one or two. Worldwide, it is moving to a software as a service. So you have no escape from subscription model on software.
Do you think IIA should create a template for such a?
I would suggest it will be better that it is done centrally and propagated, and the individual offices adapt it so that because maybe the bigger firms may have something, so they can probably ignore it. Smaller firms, medium-sized firms can adopt it so that you will have a standard across.
Okay.
Madhavan, we may need your help in that.
Yes.
When you were out, I was telling that.
Yeah. Ninan, similarly, as I was saying, an SOP for office management of license, legal compliances and software. How do you advise us to take that forward as a standard protocol for all architectural
That's
firms?
exactly the discipline we have in the office. I'll tell you, 6 months ago, a firm, but a small IT company, had a similar issue of software compliance, and they approached me. So what I asked them to do is to keep their issue came up, different matter. They were much comfortable handling that issue. The confidence at which they spoke to me 6 months later was much better than the confidence or the anxiety that they had when they spoke to me 6 months earlier. Because then they know what they have in their house. They know what is there and what should not be there, what has been removed. I was smiling when Lalichan was talking about the digging into the office. Is basically to see that cleanup should happen. Let us not even, something would have happened earlier. That's okay. Let that be the past. But let there be a cleanup happening. That's my point. That's what is my smiling. There should be a cleanup which is happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And SOP becomes part of the same checklist. That's it.
Yeah. So Ninan and Madhavan, we will be getting back to you about helping us to put together a kind of a template manual which we can share across the board, so that everybody has a reference document to know that these are the things that they should take care of in-house. Thank you so much, panelists. I now hand it over to our Joint Honorary Secretary, Vinumol Tom, for the formal vote of thanks. Thanks a lot, all panelists, for working with me in this very, very tight schedule. I have a personal thanks to give to everybody because they really extended themselves to work on this. Thank you.
And congratulations for the excellent conduct of this discussion. Excellent. Congratulations to Monolitha and PC, Gopa, and the IIA Kerala chapter who's heading now. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you, Lalichan. Thank you so much. Binu, over to you.
You're muted.
Binu, you're muted. Binu?
Yeah. Good evening, friends. On behalf of IIA Kerala chapter, I wish to extend a very heartfelt thanks to all the people who have participated in this webinar and made this a grand success. A wholehearted appreciation to Mr. Madhavan Sukumaran, who quite eloquently explained the methods of protecting our architectural firms by systematically preparing inventories, managing networks, and defining a policy and procedure for our firms, basically putting our house in order, and also about IPR. Thank you very much, sir. A big thanks to Advocate Ninan John, who has very nicely elaborated through his experiences as a lawyer that have enriched us with issues like infringement of rights, which we should be very much aware of, and also the importance of audit rights, paperwork, and how to keep the employees in the firm, giving answers, almost all the answers to the road ahead. Your insights on these matters have equipped us a lot. Thank you very much, sir. A heartfelt gratitude to the senior enlightened member of our institute, Architect Lalichan Zacharias, for the assurance that IIA will stand with all its members, actually for the Make in India dream of IIA CAD software, which we would be really looking forward to. Who has explained to us who has firm can use, and also the licensing negotiations in very simple terms. Thank you very much, sir. We will surely looking forward to get the template manual prepared, helping every architectural firm in India stay safe and stay blessed. We thank all of you for your wholehearted participation and for having spent your valuable time with us, which is of great benefit for the fraternity of architects, especially during this time of crisis. Well, I will be failing in my duty if I don't bestow a deep felt gratitude to our charming, dynamic executive member, Architect Monolitha, who has designed and devised this webinar and has brought in the best of the speakers and made it not just a reality, but has made it one of the topmost, top class level of discussion. Thanks a lot, dear Monolitha. And any webinar will be successful only with the participants. Thank you, dear participants. We had around 100 and odd participants who have patiently listened to the whole discussion in spite of it going for almost 2 hours. You have made this venture of ours a reality and really successful. Sincere thanks to all of you. And the whole thing is possible only with the chairmanship of Architect L. Gopakumar. Thank you, sir, for taking up the leadership of the working committee and allowing us to work under your brilliant guidance. And I also wish to thank the support of Vice Chairman Architect Vinod Siriak, Treasurer Naufal, and a special thanks to our Joint Secretary Architect Sutish, who has behind the screens worked on the logistics of arranging this online program. He has been working day and night on this. Thank you, Sutish, for that. And let me thank all the executive members for their wholehearted support. Thank you. Jai Hind.